Alright guys, we're back with another video. This one is about solar panels. Apparently the dogs outside don't like me being up on the roof. But what we've got here is we got 4 100 watt Renogy. These are monocrystalline panels. So they're about $100 each. There was free shipping. And just got, you can see here, some uni-strut that's holding it in place with some brackets, or in this case just did some basic hardware that's bolted down from the top down. So I've been using these panels for about a year now. They started out just kind of leaning up in my side yard up against the house, and kind of running to the basement just to make sure that everything was working properly and connected and doing what I wanted it to do before I permanently mounted them up here. I did use the PV mounting brackets, so I'll link to those in the description below, as well as these panels in the description below. So there's a bunch of videos on YouTube about solar panels and setting up a basic setup, but I wanted to kind of run you through what I've got on the house here, how we're using it, and really I've been super pleased with this stuff. So these wire in to a junction box, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but yeah, you can't really see it. Anyway, there's a junction box that's hidden right here underneath this panel, and so all of my connections come into that, and then they go through this plastic conduit. You can also see here I left space that if I wanted to double this array and put another set of panels in here, I certainly can. So we've got room to move from 400 to 800 if I wanted to. I also spec'd the cable that goes from my junction box down to my charge controller that it can handle that power if I wanted to. Right now these are just running in series, so I've got 2 in series. They're 12 volt panels, so once they're in series, that's giving me a 24 volt group. So I've got 2 groups of 24 volts. I could again double that, and the cables that are running to my charge controller in the house would be no problem for that. So let's go down to the basement and take a look at what's going on down there. Alright, so we just came from up there on that roof, and you can see we've got some plastic conduit that comes down, makes a turn, and used to be straight, but it comes along the side of the house here and comes into this little connection. So we've got the cables come in through this right angle and go into the house, which we'll see in the basement in just a minute. And then we have this covered outlet here. And what I'm doing here, the top one gives me 15 amps to run outside off the solar, so I can use it to run any power tools, general electronic stuff out here, and is really convenient. The bottom one I was using previously when I was testing the system, so that's how I plugged my my solar panels in actually to the system. I'm going to rewire that just in case I need to set up some extra panels here in case of an emergency. I would have the ability to set panels out here, put a head on it, and just plug it right in, and it'll go into a bus bar in the charge controller setup. So this is just a pretty basic outside system. I'm probably going to come back and redo this, honestly, with metal conduit, or just put in a couple more tabs to pull this up and straighten it up just for visual appeal. All right, well, that's it for the outside. Let's hop inside and see what's going on in the basement. All right, so now we're down in the basement. We're going to take a look at kind of the heart and brains of everything. As you can see here, we've got the 6, these are 12 volt deep cycle marine batteries. These are just standard batteries you can pick up from an auto parts store. If we look on top here, we can see kind of the ratings and specs on these things. So 140 amp hours per battery. We've got 6 of them there, and they do really well. So this is just a 12 volt battery setup right now. You can see the large double-aught wire that's coming off the batteries going into this Ames inverter. And so this is, if I can flip the camera around so it's the right side, there we go. So we got 2000 watt continuous, 4000 peak. It is a pure sine inverter. And so this is kind of running all of the, all the standard 110 connections. I've got a USB output on it, which I keep down here in my office area, just for general charging of things. And then we've got two 110 outputs. And so when we follow that over, we come up here, and now we've got, if I back up here, we've got just kind of one big panel where I keep all of my solar connections. Now you will see two connections. So here on the left, this is kind of an existing connection that comes from my grid, just handle some stuff here in the basement. And then as well, we've got another connection over here specific to my sump pump. So this is where it all started, the sump pump here. But what I can do if I need to is just take this out, plug it right into the solar array and the battery backup, and then I'm good to go with that in case of an emergency. But if we start up here, we have the Rover 40 amp MPPT charge controller, and so that's taking all the power that's coming in from the panels and converting it to the batteries. So I do have a quick disconnect here to the batteries. This is 12 volt setup from the battery as well, and then these two coming in are from the solar panels themselves. Next to that, we've got a little timer. I found this thing to be really helpful, and I'll explain that in just a minute. But that also grabs a little feed here off the 12 volt line. Then we come up and we've got the breaker box, which you can see the large yellow cable coming in from the inverter, comes into the box and gives me 110 into here. And a little further, we have just a charge control, not a charge controller, a just standard battery controller that I'm using. I converted, in another video you'll see, but I converted all of my yard tools over to the Ryobi 40 volt setup, so I just charge them here. And then I've got various other chargers for laptops and such. This one moves straight over to my office setup, and then I have an on-off switch for the Ames inverter. So let's talk about this on-off switch. I can obviously manually click this on, and it's going to turn on the inverter. I can also turn it back off. But the important part is this cable here. This is just a standard telephone cable, old school. For those of you who remember telephones, not cell phones. So this cable comes over. It only sends power out of two of the wires. And so I found out what those were. And you can see here I just kind of spliced into those two wires into this timer. And so what I found was that I was killing power. I was just draining power all night long with that inverter, just sitting there ready and just kind of running. I've designed this now to where this 12 volt timer will take power from the battery, and this timer is the only thing that runs at night. And then at 6:30 in the morning it will kick on, and at 8 o'clock at night it kicks off. And so that seems to keep my batteries nice and charged, running well all year long. So that's the downstairs setup here with the brains of everything else. I will say these three breakers real quick. We'll talk in a second about the kitchen. So this breaker on the bottom goes to the kitchen. This breaker here runs my washing machine, which is down here in the basement as well. And then this one goes outside, which you've already seen. And that is gives me the ability to run power tools and such outside while I'm doing some work. All right, well, that's enough about the basement area here. Let's hop upstairs and we can take a look at the outlet that's up in the kitchen for us. All right, so nothing too earth-shattering here, just an outlet. But that outlet is run off of solar power. So that's what's plugged into the 15 amp breaker that's at my my station downstairs in the basement. So we typically have some cables plugged into that. I charge phones, iPads, whatever we want. And I actually use that a lot. I run a rice cooker. I have cooked on my pressure cooker. What else? My Instapot. I've run my crock pot on it. So we really have a variety of things we can do just with that solar power. Now, obviously, you want to be smart about when you're using the solar power. So right now, when I've got more than 12 volts in my bank, in my battery setup, you saw with 13.3. So that's just free power right now. Those batteries nominally live at about 12.2 at night. When everything is off and it's just kind of resting, lives about 12.2. So when I start getting up into 13 and even 14 volts that I see on that charge controller downstairs, that's just all free solar power. And so I can just completely do whatever I want at that point. So we try and we wash laundry. Once the sun's coming up, we'll wash laundry. We can, again, I can cook on it throughout the morning or through the day and have no drain on the batteries at all. So it's really been a great setup. Again, it's kind of an entry-level setup for me. The panels will stay. So the panels are permanent. The charge controller, the inverter, and the batteries will most likely go live out on my shed. I've got a little 100-watt setup right now out there, and that's more just to give lights in the shed, if I'm honest. But I'll probably convert from the 24-volt setup on the roof and the 12-volt batteries, and I'll probably go with a 24-volt lithium-ion setup, running some 18650s. If you're into solar at all or into making batteries, you know about Jehu Garcia. Shout out to you for being an inspiration for making this stuff happen. But he's got some really cool DIY battery banks and Tesla Powerwall type things he's doing a bunch of content on right now. Check him out because that's probably the setup I'm going to go with. But when I do that, I probably have to I've got to change my inverter because the inverter is 12 volt, not 24 volt. So anyway, that's a quick look at the solar setup that we've got in our house. Again, we've been using it for a year, and it's really turned out to be a great feature, a great addition. All of this solar everything started at my house because we had a big storm come through a couple years ago, knocked down a bunch of trees. Power was out for like a week. We ended up after 3 days and trying to cook all of the food that we had in our chest freezer. We ended up borrowing a diesel generator from my father-in-law. It was great to have it, but it was diesel, which stinks, and it's a generator, which is loud. And so I started looking at what generator would I buy, doing all the cost comparisons of cost to own that thing over 3 years, because you really have to have gas on hand, because if the gas stations don't have power, you can't get gas. And so looking at all of those things of kind of wasted costs, again, oil, maintenance on that generator, all those things. And I decided that if I went solar, then it's always going to work. And I can use it all the time because it's quiet and it's free. So kind of setting that stuff up, I'm really happy that we can cook on it. We run, like I said, our washing machine on it. It's there all the time. My office runs on it. And so it's a great backup source. But we've got a sump pump in our basement. And the backup battery that was there was one deep cycle battery. Storm comes through, knocks out power for a week. That backup battery lasted for about 6 or 7 hours. There was so much rain, it was just pumping, and it never got recharged. Which, from there, I said, okay, well, if I can't have my basement getting flooded because power goes out and the backup system really is null and void at that point as well. So solar's been a great solution for us. Check out an upcoming video about how we've converted the power and yard tools, not power tools, but the yard tools over to the Ryobi 40-volt system. That's been another great addition for us. But that's it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Obviously, it's a variety of content that we're getting on this channel, but it's all about just experiences that I've had, and you may find some benefit along the way too. So that's it for today. Peace.